Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
Happy anniversary!
We've got Chris.
Also, the Queen lives in Buckingham Palace, not in Big Ben, like you said.
And I'm Kia. Hi, welcome to the show. It is our anniversary episode. This is big episode number 200. Whoa. I cannot believe we've done 200 of these. It seems crazy. That's 200 hours of my life. That's probably more than that, actually.
Yeah, you say a lot more than that. That's just the recording.
That's a bit, not even. And
we were going hour and a half for a little while there.
If you've been listening since the beginning,
thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's any. Yeah, if you're a listener at all, we appreciate it. It's been a long time we've been doing this, but we thought we'd do something a little bit different for this 200th episode, and we are doing kind of a rare comic that
different by doing Alan Moore.
Well, I mean, no, it is an Alan Moore comic, but it's
an Alan Moore book that almost no one remembers.
Yeah, it's not. We mentioned this on the last episode, but it is not available anywhere. Like, you cannot buy this thing. We had to find it online. It is called 1963, and it's a collection of one-shots that was released in 1993 by Image Comics, and it's meant to be like kind of Silver Age, like parody / homage / just kind of like, it really does feel like these books came straight out of 1963. Like, just from reading them, if you hadn't told me these were modern comics, I don't know, they'd be pretty good for 1963, to be honest. But yeah. And of course, before I forget, we are continuing our long read of Batman Knightfall. We are on Chapter 7, Batman 495. We'll talk about that at the end of the show here. Back to this book here by Alan Moore. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit weird to talk about because it's
it's very dense. What it feels like to me the most is like our DC versus Marvel one-shots. Is what it feels like. The Amalgam Universe stuff, like where it's just a bunch of one shots of like a superhero, but it also like they're in media res. Like, we're not reading the origin of this like Fantastic Four analog. It's just kind of like them like 40 or 50 issues in. And so that's the best framework I could make for it. I guess Amalgam was probably right around this time too. What, 93, 94, 95, around there?
It was a little later because the bubble had burst by the time Amalgam.
That's right. I'm thinking of Death of Superman. That's right. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm lumping this in. And then it very much feels like what I got as a kid, and I've talked about this before, the Origins of Marvel Comics collection I had from my my grandmother remarried, and her husband gave me all of his kids' comics in this collection, and it had the first issue of like Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Hulk, and then an issue from when that collection came out, which was like in the 70s, so like 10 years later. And so that's what it just felt like, all these like in media res, like kind of classic Silver Age comics that I just happened to pick up randomly. That's what this collection felt like to me. So it is what it is. And I guess we're doing a 30-year anniversary of a book that's looking back 30 years. So that's where we're at.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that detail. We are exactly 30 years out from this 30-year-old book.
Yes. Yeah. That's why we're covering it. So if we get folded back in time to 1993 or 1963, we'll know why.
Yes.
But that would never happen.
I'm sure it won't. It'd be impossible for anyone to get sucked back to 1993 or 63, or really any year ending in 3 other than 2023.
And 63 is kind of a classic year because I guess is that when most of the Marvel stuff came out? Like Amazing Spider-Man, or Fantasy at least, is 62. And Fantastic Four is 62 also, Chris? Is that right?
No, Fantastic Four I think is 61.
Okay.
But 63 is when, like, that's where I think all of the big Marvel books are out. So, like, Daredevil, I think, comes out. Avengers comes out. This is, like, all the Silver Age books are
It really is like a one-to-one parody of the entire Marvel lineup around 1963.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's great, Kia, right?
Down to the fact that like one of the books has like a half Captain America analog and a half Iron Man analog, which was
exactly
Tales of Suspense. No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, although it's different from the half Captain America, half Iron Man book, because the Iron Man half is actually good, which if you go back and read those,
that was my least favorite book, and I chalked it up to, well, it's like Iron Man. It's okay. I'm just gonna flip through this.
Even then, it wasn't the best, but those Silver Age Iron Man books are so bad.
They're bad. They're very bad.
Them and X-Men are the bottom of the. There's no X-Men parody here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I will say I wasn't even like looking for direct comparisons as I was going through. It was more just like, oh, it's kind of a Silver Agey superhero team, and the Iron Man connection with that one. We'll get to it, but I didn't even realize it was an Iron Man kind of connection. It's more of a outer spacey, almost Doctor Strange-y kind of
there's
thing.
a lot of Green Lantern to that one, because he's he's like the interdimensional or whatever, and he's like in space. But let's get into it.
Instead of talking around it, let's jump into it, and we'll start talking about each book individually here. They are numbered, so there was like 1963 issue 1, but I think the actual covers themselves don't really look like that necessarily. They just look like their own kind of thing. They all have issue numbers, and they like make references to a lot of other stories and things like that as we're going. So it's like, hey, remember this from Mystery Incorporated number 105 or whatever.
The editor's notes and everything, by Affable Al, which I never think of Alan Moore as an Al.
I was like, who is that? Who's Al Moore? What? It really threw me.
I loved all of his Stanley, especially they're so mean to Stan, which I like. It almost crosses the point where I'm like, this is getting a little too mean.
Excalibur.
But it's so funny. Like when he tells his origin story, his like 3-part story of Affable Al. Oh my God.
All right, let's
you missed all the best parts in this book by not reading all of that.
I read enough of it. Let's go.
So if you're a comic book and you put prose in it, I'm not going to read it. You might as well.
I mean, for real. It's like if I see a whole page of text, I'm skipping past it. I'm sorry.
Did you at least look at the ads?
I did look at the ads. I did look at the ads. They were cute. I think
the ads are so funny. I loved there's the Drawing Institute one, and then there's a later one that's like, can you draw our president? Don't use this program.
Yeah, I did see that. I mean, but it's not like the Tales Design at Thrizzle ads, which I feel like the peak of fake ads. But here we go.
Those are also good.
We've got 6 big issues to go through.
I've got barely any notes about any of them here. Let's go.
A lot of things happen. So the first issue, Fantastic Four.
It's called Mystery Incorporated. It's a Fantastic Four parody. And there's like some juggernaut-looking villain that's busted into their HQ, and they do some beat-ups on him. There's a crystal dude. I think he's our Mr. Fantastic parody. He can like reshape his body into crystals.
You think his name is Crystal Man? Yeah, give him some respect.
Okay, I barely remember anyone's name. There's one guy. Okay, this guy's called the Planet, right?
Yes.
His head.
So it's not
like
actually Juggernaut. He's the thing. It's not actually Juggernaut. He's doing like a danger room sequence. We'll find out.
Yes, he's trying to break in to test their defenses. There's Crystal Man, who's the Mr. Fantastic. There's Neon Queen, who can turn into gases, but she's Invisible Woman. There's Kid Dynamo, who turns into electricity, but he's Human Torch. And there's the Planet, who's just the thing, but he has the planet for a head.
Yeah, not a big planet. He looks like a big lime with like some like
marks.
Yeah, he looks more like the moon than the planet, frankly.
Yeah. Boy, the team takes him down. It was like a fake thing, you said? Like a danger room scenario?
Yes.
Oh, all right, cool.
He's one of the members, Kia. You didn't pick up on this?
I really didn't. I was instantly over this book. I'm sorry. I started reading this and I was like, oh boy, okay, here we go.
Yeah, this was one of those ones. Usually I take like a day or two to read these and I'm like, this is an Alan Moore book. We're going to spend a day with every issue. That's just how it's going to be because it's very dense. It's not as dense as like Supreme was, but here we are.
It was more like I spent a day with the first half of this issue and then had to muster up the strength to come back to it eventually and rush through the rest of them. I don't understand. All right. So it is okay, let's keep going. The team takes them down. They're all fine. They have some interpersonal kind of communication between them. The young Human Torch guy kind of has the hots for Jeannie, who is the Invisible Woman type. I think in this scenario, the hothead and the planet guy, they're brothers, right?
Yes, that's the big change. Is that Thing and Human Torch are brothers? They're both after the same woman, who is Invisible Girl.
Yeah. And she's like, kind of wishing she wasn't the weak link of the team and like had better powers and things like that. And she runs into this mysterious dude who's like walking backwards and talking backwards, and she's like, kind of going after him, but then he disappears, and it's like, what is this guy? What's going on here?
There's also a issue where they read their own fan mail, and Neon Queen is like, everyone says I suck and that I should quit the team, which again, it's literally just Invisible Woman from the Silver Age.
Mm-hmm. And and then what? And then she goes to the rest of the team, and they're like, oh, who is this guy? Where did he come from? And they do a bunch of detective work to figure it out.
She turns into a gas, and he coughs. Well, he coughs backwards before she turns into a gas, but she doesn't understand what's going on. So it's like, okay, well, you're dumb.
It really was like, okay, yeah, he's going backwards. Like, get it. You should understand this. Everybody else comes in and they're like, oh, she's right. There were footprints here. But we need to not follow these footprints forward. We need to follow these footprints backwards to see where he's been. And they do all that. They have like a nice little sequence where I think I'm jumping way far ahead. I think my next notes are about the very end of this book. I did not care about anything that was happening. It was just generic Silver Age action sequences with a lot of like, granted, a lot of like cool invented ideas. Like I like this crystal guy and all the stuff he's doing, but there was nothing for me I felt to latch onto. I thought, okay, let me take that back. I was kind of like invested a little bit in the mystery of this guy and where he came from, right? And he disappears, and they're like, oh, it seems like he disappeared out of our mystery machine or whatever they're calling it. And they start to like investigate this, and the Human Torch character ends up fighting this guy one-on-one. And we haven't talked about what this guy looks like. He's kind of like a archer looking fellow with like a very generic.
He's got a full. He's like Green Man, but dark Green Man, like which is kind of closer like
and he's wearing like electrical gloves, and like he's very clearly insulated to fight the electrical guy.
That's clever. I just thought he looked like Doomsday, but not as bulky.
No, yeah, he's got a bunch of anti-electricity stuff, and he even says like that hurt even through my insulated suit.
Yeah. I really like this panel where the Human Torch character gets attacked by numbers. I thought it was like zeros and ones all around him, and then he's like in this matrix looking thing, and he gets trapped in this box.
Yeah, he gets sucked into the TV basically,
yes.
like Willy Wonka.
It's very cool ideas.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned. So Alan Moore's the author. Is this Rick Veitch or Stephen Bissette?
Oh yes, this one is Rick Veitch. Yeah, with inks by Dave Gibbons of Watchmen fame.
Yeah, so it's Alan Moore's like collaborators, because Veitch we covered recently in Swamp Thing. Right, the fill-in artist, I think, for the Swamp Thing.
And he does all the flashbacks in Supreme.
Yeah. So it's definitely his collaborators. This is very much the whole like Swamp Thing team coming back together here.
Yeah.
Yeah. To do a very anti-Swamp Thing book.
Yeah, it looks nothing like Swamp Thing. There are parts of it that have like that. We'll get to that.
I love Crystal Man's like diagram of a guy walking backwards and then a guy walking forwards. I'm like, what the heck? But it's such a Reed Richards like solution where you're like, I don't even know what this is trying to tell me.
Yeah, he's like talking to the other two, and he's like, oh, there's like a dimensional thing and backwards and time travel, and the other guys going into a trap. Oh no!
But we do see he does draw. He says, now let's imagine it's possible to travel diagonally back in time from the future of Earth squared to the present of our world. So he's in E2 1993. He's going diagonally back to Earth 1 1963. Dun dun dun.
Mm-hmm. And
this is setting up a bigger story, which never pays off. Which I guess is I do understand being frustrated at that part, but you also didn't care. So
it doesn't pay off in the Spawn crossover that we didn't read.
Hold on. We'll get to that fake Spawn crossover. For now, I I need to talk about the structure of these books, right? Which is that I did not expect there to be any like crossover from book to book. I expected 6 kind of separate stories. And when this first one ended on a cliffhanger of like, oh, we have to go find our other teammate. And then it's like, all right, what's going to happen in the next issue? And then we don't have another issue of this. It just goes to a whole another completely separate team. And I was like, well, why did I care about any of this? And I was just like, done. And I know it all kind of comes full circle and they all connect in issue 6. I'm going to spoil that now.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I didn't know.
They are moving forward. We find out as it's going.
Barely. I was so uninterested in anything as I was reading this. It was just like cool action sequences, cool art. I'm done. And that was it as we were going. Like, here's my initial criticism, because this is going to be like, I'm going to have a hard time not being negative. I have a lot of positives about this book. I'll bring them up. But it was almost too much of a Silver Age parody, where it was like in the middle of a book that you pick up, and there was no complete story being told, I felt, and just, again, nothing to latch onto, where even when you do pick up like an old Silver Age book or something like that, it felt like it was trying to pack too much into these things while at the same time not delivering enough of a story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the second issue will also like pack a lot of story. We're getting very ahead to final thoughts, but like,
we are.
Some of this
kind of have to with this.
It's too cute by half. Like, it's very accurate to me, but like, you know, like they're nailing this, but like to what end?
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of am losing. Like, you know, like are we? And I'm used to more like wanting to tell me something about the nature of story or something. And you don't really get that here. But the thing is like, I think it comes together, but it takes till the issue 3 with the Captain America story for me to like latch onto this book. And I think I started figuring out because they mention like, what is his name? USA or USA? It's not
USA.
It's USA.
Just USA.
They mentioned him like early in this issue. So like they have like a shared universe. So like, and they maybe mentioned the Fury who's in issue 2. And so by then I'm like, oh, I heard that name. That was cool. So it starts coming together for me.
For me, it was like, oh, I heard that name. And that was it.
Lock and Key broke you, Kia, by giving everybody names.
Go ahead, Chris.
I understand those criticisms. As far as Vince, you're saying, you know, it's a pitch perfect parody of like when Neon Queen. It's like everyone hates me and wants me off the team. Like, yeah, that's like literally just Fantastic Four fan mail of like 1963. But I do think, and yeah, this first issue is you don't quite see what's going on. But I also agree about issue 3 and 4. You kind of see like Alan Moore. His point here, I think, is that the Silver Age, like, it's just like ideas. Like, it's just throwing out all of these ideas, and they're so crazy. And like, this is something that's sort of lost. At least that's what I think he's saying in modern comics, is that you get to the rules of like, oh, well, now we know the rules of the Phantom Zone. We know the rules of what a Doctor Doom issue is. We know the rules of what these things are, and they all have to sort of just iterate on what's already been done. But this is just like they're very clearly just doing stuff, and it's Jack Kirby at like his most Jack Kirby-ish as far as what, you know, Veitch or Veitch or however you say his name is doing. Like, it's just crazy action, and then like in service of an idea, and like if it tells a story, great, but like the main thing is that it's dynamic, and that it's like telling the, you know, we'll get to more points I love, but I really enjoyed, you know, when Crystal Man fights this robot for what? Like, for really no purpose except it looks very cool that he like takes over this robot.
That's an interesting idea. Like the superhero comics and comics is like as a storytelling sequential medium. We're like, I mean, they would have been going on since the 30s, but you know, as like in their infancy and just throwing out ideas. Because I think about that a lot with like video games, that we are very much like still in like the silent era compared to film. With video games, like we're just now going to get to like where maybe video games will like coalesce in what they're meant to be, but like we grew up in just the wild fucking west of video games, of like them just throwing shit out at the wall, and then it'll coalesce into a medium at some point. And that's, I think, an interesting observation, that if the 60s of comics are just throwing ideas out there, and now they're all like, we know what a superhero comic is, this is what they are.
Right. Now we have, you know, And just because of the nature of corporations, now we can't let go. We have to keep every 60s idea that Stanley had, from 1963 to beat a deadline. We can't throw it away. We have to use the Vulture a million times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or use them as a starting point at least.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously there's cool stuff you can do with it, but I do think that that's kind of what the point they're trying to make is that there's just, you don't know what's going to, and God, by the time we get to the third issue, you really don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, we should mention to the letters page and also the bullpen bulletins. Alan Moore does a very good Stan Lee parody, and they print letters pages that are to an issue we haven't read. So I don't blame you guys for not reading them, but I read all of them. They're very funny because it's Alan Moore writing fake letters in the style of 1960s letters. This is just one from the first issue. In Mystery Inc. number 17, on page 5 on the last panel, King Zero's leg is blue instead of white. Also on page 18, you have Crystal Man say, we have to stop him reaching the Devolvo Ray with the word the repeated twice. Is there a reason for this, or did you just make a mistake?
Wow.
And it's like, that's exactly, I mean, we've talked about when we did our amazing Spider-Man reread of the first year when he calls himself, what did he call himself? Peter?
He definitely doesn't have his right name at one point.
Yeah, he gets his name wrong for sure once, like Peter Palmer or something, where you're just like, really?
Yeah. It is funny. It's a lot of, it is so much detail and so much work to create this thing. All right. Fun ads too. We kind of alluded to them. I really like the one about like me no speak English good or whatever.
Yes.
That was.
Shamed by you English?
Yeah, shamed by you English.
And then he writes a letter in I think the 5th or the 6th of this issue where it's almost incomprehensible.
Okay, great. So
there's great parodies, and again, I totally get it if you haven't seen all of these ads, but like there's so many bad 60s ads that I've read because I read the Marvel used to have like a DVD version that had all the ads, and so I've read all of these ads, or I've seen all of them. The one, the Charles Atlas one, of course, the one of like improve your vocabulary, the one the monkey that you could order. Which apparently there's a good, I forget if it's Cracked or another company that talked about the people that actually ordered that monkey and got a tiny, very unhappy, very sick monkey.
Oh no.
Where it's just like, how did they think this business was going to work? So I loved all those ads. And then there's the ad from basically the comic book company in Colorado, is it Mile High? Where they're just like, we don't have these comics, but in 30 years we will.
Yeah, in the future, there will be stores that sell nothing but comics.
Yeah, so I enjoyed all of these fake ads a lot. I totally get it, Key. I'm not going to say
that's
you
fine,
have to like this book.
I know.
But yeah, like I said, I think this is an ideal, there's a very small ideal audience. Like, are you familiar with like Stan and Jack? And especially like I said, as it goes on, he's so mean to Stan. Yeah. So, but yeah, let's get on to issue 2, where we meet Spider-Man, or I'm sorry, the Fury.
It's the Fury? Oh, okay. That makes sense. Of course it is. Okay, yeah. No One Escapes the Fury with art by Stephen Bissette, Dave Gibbons on ink again.
That's also a Swamp Thing artist, right? Stephen Bissette?
Yes.
Is he the main
I
one?
believe so. He's the one, though, that Alan Moore's the reason this has never been published, but he's the reason there was a big falling out among these guys, and he and Alan Moore are not friends anymore, apparently.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so again, at this point, I still wasn't even looking for a direct one-to-one comparison. It was just like that last group was just like a generic. I didn't connect Fantastic Four to that last team. It was just like a generic team of 4 with some random powers, and I wasn't even like looking for the connection,
I guess, but I don't know. For me, I'm just like, this is so obvious. Like,
and here,
hiding.
And like, obviously, I picked up on the Aunt May thing, but it was also just like I didn't pick up on a Spider-Man connection at all. I thought
it was Captain America for a long time.
Yeah, it was a lot of just like, it felt like every book was just elements of a lot of very typical Silver Age stuff, you know?
Yeah, there's elements of it, but yeah, and there's definitely some Daredevil because he's also bragging a lot. But like, you know, his what's her name? The Nick Fury character is very clearly just a lady Nick Fury, and to the point that she's smoking in like every scene.
So this character is called the Fury. He is the son of the original Fighting Fury. And he's talking about like, oh, my identity has to stay secret because my mom would die of shock if she found out. And
why is his mom so old?
Why is his mom so old? Why is Peter's aunt so old? It's again, it's such a direct parody that it doesn't even feel like parody anymore. It's just like the same thing.
Because Richard Parker was the youngest of 12 and Ben was the oldest of 12.
Sure.
I don't know if that's true or not.
It's the depression.
But I do know, like, my grandparents definitely had like 20 years between siblings. So I'm just gonna throw that one.
It definitely happened back, like I said, back in the Depression days. I think it did. But yeah, so the Fury, he fights basically some flying guys, right?
Yeah, the first half of this book was like super losing me. It started to pick up again in the second half, but the first half was very like just a lot of generic action sequences with a lot of random goons. Nothing jumped out.
And you're right. This is where the book feels like super dense because this feels like a classic Simpsons episode where the first 7 minutes like don't matter to the rest of the plot of the episode.
Well, and it's a pure like Silver Age craziness. And the first few pages, he's fighting these like Vulture type ripoff guys, and then he fights the Void. Who there's some great quotes. What's his quote when? He says, "After years of bragging that no one escapes the Fury, you must face the bitter truth that no matter how far you run, you can't avoid the Voidoid."
The Voidoid is a pretty inspired name. I like that. He is
pretty bad.
He's got a suit on that makes him just blank white, like he just doesn't exist. So he's just like not on the comic book panel.
I love
stuff
that,
goes
that
through
design.
him. It's a cool design.
Too cool for 1963. This is also, we get issue 2. There was a comic in, or there was an ad in comics for years about like, oh, you own your own sub for $8 or whatever. Here it's own a nuclear sub over 1,000 feet long.
Big enough to scare NATO.
That was good. Yeah, I should have just read the ads, to be honest.
They're so funny. Like, they really got me every time. Like, clearly Alan Moore has a lot of love for these stupid ads.
Yes, definitely. We have some scientists who are messing with Cargo X, and Cargo X turns out to be a big dinosaur that wakes up. Oh no! And we see its shadow, and the dinosaur got me back on board.
Yeah, I do love too because he's like, "What destroyed the dinosaurs? That's easy." I did.
It talks too. It's very just like he's kind of an asshole. He's just like, you fucking asshole! I'm gonna kill you all.
Yeah, again, extremely.
Right, there was a dinosaur in this issue.
Book. Yeah, even though this should be a Steve Ditko book, extremely Jack Kirby monster.
Yeah, that's also what this felt like. Was a lot like that Blue Beetle we read. That Ditko Blue Beetle. That's right.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, well, and I've read Astro City, and there's like he has the top or whatever he is, the Jack in the Box, I think, and it's just like he's like a Steve Ditko type jumping around guy, and that's what the Fury is. He's a jumping around guy.
Yeah, that's right though. This book is so dense. Like he fights like those flying dudes, the Void, and this dinosaur in this issue. Like there's a lot going on in this issue.
Yes.
It's too much.
You might say.
The design on the dinosaur is great. It's got this third eye on the middle of its head, and it shoots lasers out of it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. I love how much of a jerk he is, how mad he is at the Fury.
Also, sorry, listener, if you hear me sniffling a little bit, I'm getting over a cold. I'm trying to control it here. Okay, never mind.
You're over it. I'm over it, Kia.
So in the middle of this big fight with this monster, the Fury runs into a telephone booth nearby because he has to remember to call his mother so that she won't worry about him. And he's accidentally wearing his mask over his face, and she's like, "Oh, wait, why is your voice so muffled?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm getting over a cold." And he
just like he
lifts just like me. Oh my god! And lifts up his mask, and He's like, oh, get home safe. And meanwhile, this dinosaur's giant claw is like looming outside. He's like, oh, I gotta go. Someone else needs the phone. And afterwards, she's looking at this picture and is like, oh, I'm glad you're not an adventurer like your father. I would hate to lose the both of you. Oh, yeah. So the Voidoid in the middle of this Voidoid, whatever. It like gets real beaten up and stuff, and like is in the middle of this big fight, and is like, I'm out of here, and takes off his suit and just blends in like a normal person. Great. The Fury, aka Spider-Man, gets some weapons and ends up knocking this dinosaur off of a pier. At the time I wrote this was my panel of the week. There's lots of other panels came in later that were better, but this dinosaur falling backwards in the water, yelling "No!" was an excellent image. Really,
it rules. And yeah, I like the reveal. He's got his big first aid kit that he's trying to stuff in the dinosaur's mouth, and you find out it's all full of tranquilizers.
And they get him back to the lab and everything, and he sneaks home, and he's like sick in bed, and like you've seen Spider-Man do a million times.
His face is ridiculous as he's looking at a photo of his dead father.
Oh yeah. And yeah, that's the end of that issue there. This one at least felt like I got a complete story out of it, which was definitely better than the first issue for that reason.
Setting up the Voidoid and the lady from Laser, characters that we all know and love.
Yeah. Okay. Anything?
The Voidoid story does tie into issue 6, I should say.
Does it? I barely remember.
Yes.
Okay. Were there any ads or letters pages?
This is the one where swipe any drawing in 1 minute. Used by the professionals. No talent, no lessons. And it's basically just like a light that like projects so you can then trace images on your piece of paper.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And it's showing like artists doing this. Like it's again kind of mean. Is this the issue or is it the first issue where he has a sort of Stan Lee thing where he's like, look, you guys, we're doing our part for race relations. We're gonna have a very dark gray guy who we're gonna make black officially as long as no one complains.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's really funny. Like
no
he's just like, look, we're doing our part. This is tolerance. This is the future of having one sort of black character.
Oh. All right.
It's so like again, it's very mean to Stanley, and we haven't even gotten to the meanest part, which is in issue 4 or 5, where he's telling the story of Affable Al. Oh, this one I think is where someone writes a letter of like, I read an interview with Rick Veitch where he complained about being work for hire. What does that mean? And he has this long explanation where he's just like, no. Work for hire means that Hiram, our inker, has to come in and do some corrections on work after it's been already drawn. And so that's what he was probably talking about.
So on to issue 3 here, Tales of the Uncanny. This is the one where they split it up into 2 different books, which really pissed me off because now I thought I was only reading 6 stories, and now I'm like, there's more stories in here. I was very mad at this point.
Yeah.
Did you really not like the first half of issue 3 though, Kia? Come on.
This is delightful.
I didn't. This
really
did it.
I was trying to think, like, why did I latch onto this one? Because I don't really care about like early Captain America. I think it's the Kennedy assassination stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's because this is where it goes completely off the wall. Like Marvel would never do this.
I mean,
yeah, it takes place in Texas, which is where I am. So I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I guess those are all things. So
Captain America literally stops the Kennedy assassination and then finds out that it's a setup from the future.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I get that that's an entertaining premise. It's just like it did nothing for me to read it happen.
So
I don't know.
So page 1 is USA Ultimate Special Agent, but it's Captain America.
Yeah.
Okay. He's Kennedy. He got shot in Dallas in the Kennedy assassination, but because he's got super soldier strength, it doesn't kill him. And then he rips off his mask, but he still has his Captain America domino mask underneath his Kennedy mask. I'm delighted immediately.
Yeah, look, that guy up there with a gun. He shot the president. Wait a minute. That's not the president. It's USA Ultimate Special Agent.
USA. It's the best. I'm on board. Kia, I don't know. I read a fuck ton of like Kennedy conspiracy assassination shit. So like, I think this is like where I'm like in.
Like the plot,
the face
literally
on Jackie O. She's so happy.
The plots of these books just did not matter to me at all. It was all just blah blah walls of text being thrown at me that I was like, just end already. Every single book by page 2, I was please just end. I'm sorry.
On the first page, he stops the Kennedy.
Yeah, so he goes up to that building, which is now a museum,
depository.
Which is now a museum for the assassination of Kennedy. The place he was shot from is now a museum to his death. It's fucked up. Yep. Yay, Texas.
Also, not that hard a shot. Easily could have done it. He had training.
but Oswald, he's got a different name. There's analog names for everything. But
I love the name we're gonna get to. Yeah, the fake Oswald has like a time disruptor and disappears into the future, and then he finds Oswald tied up.
And so then he does like a little like mystery to like what does he do here? He does like one Jackie O, which I think is hilarious. I call her Jackie O, even though clearly she wasn't Jackie O at this time because that's her remarried name after her husband was murdered. But here we are. So Jackie O's like, he's really cute. And we find out that like Captain America takes like omega pills to stop from being an old man or some shit like that.
He's constantly referring to his vitamin omega enriched blah blah blah, like constantly using that phrase, which is very funny. I think my vitamin omega enhanced reflexes, my vitamin omega enhanced consciousness.
And JFK when he's like, my father told me he listened to you fight gangs in the 1920s. Like, so he's the Captain America. He was around, but yeah, he's going through the file. And who's this dog trainer / nightclub owner? Who could it be? It's Brian Ruby.
Not Jack Ruby. Completely different.
Brian Ruby. And he says, only a monster like him could be behind a plot as fantastic as this. And so he runs off.
Oh, I get it.
We find. Wait, is that meant to be a reference to
the Red
something?
Skull? Well, because Brain and Brian, Brian is an anagram for Brain.
So I mean,
the Ruby
Red
Brain.
Red
Skull.
Well, I know that. I got that connection. I didn't know. Okay, I didn't. Again, I wasn't looking for one-to-one comparisons. Clearly this was a Captain America thing. Like, it's impossible to not see that.
Yes.
But I wasn't even realizing it was the Red Skull. It was the Red Brain. He's going through the files from this assassination guy. He sees it's an ad for a nightclub hosted by Brian Ruby, and he's like, I realize who this is, and it's the Red Brain.
Right.
This was like 12 years before Jeff Johns had Del Rusk as like the Secretary of Defense or whatever. He's like, oh no, it's an anagram.
So
jeez, wow.
We're never gonna read the Jeff Johns Avengers, but not even for April Fool's Day. We wouldn't do that to ourselves. But like, this is also like the real like Kennedy assassination. For those of you listeners who are getting your Kennedy assassination information from the 200th episode of the show, is that Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly murdered President John F. Kennedy Jr. And then when he was being perp walked, another dude, Jack Ruby, came and shot him. So then, like, were they trying to silence Oswald because he didn't actually kill Kennedy? Who's this Jack Ruby motherfucker? Who I think died in prison like in the 90s. But
Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner in Dallas in the 60s, so he had mob ties.
Oh, did he? Because I thought maybe he was just some guy who was like, fuck, because Texas, we're stupid vigilantes sometimes. I just assumed I could think I'm just gonna kill the guy who killed the president.
I mean, I think that's what happened, but because he was a nightclub owner, he did have mob ties, and so that's people are like, oh, but Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and the mob and JFK and Marilyn Monroe and blah blah. They weave a whole web of why this happened. It's not the obvious explanation of like one guy who, for some reason, the CIA was keeping tabs on, but not very well. Because he had defected to Russia and come back.
Ruby did that, really?
No. Oswald had done that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I do not know all my stuff then anymore. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he had defected to the USSR and come back to America. He had tried to form like a league in New Orleans, like a sort of anti-American thing that basically, I think other socialists in New Orleans thought he was a CIA plant, and no one joined. So, and then he kills the president. So there are people that think it's the CIA is related, but it could also just be that the CIA just lost track of a really crazy guy.
Amazing. So, anyways,
I'm so confused by this episode, man. What is going on?
That's what really happened, Kia. In the story, USA saved the president and then fights the Red Brain, who is a tiny little communist man.
Yes.
His body is all brain.
Yeah.
Which makes him very physically sensitive when he gets punched in the face.
Yeah, when he gets punched, he's just crying. No.
He does. This is where I will say, okay, the art got crazy cool here because he's like using his brain powers to make USA kind of go a little bit crazy, and he's like starting to turn a little bit like Doctor Strangey, like in the movies, like where the buildings are all going like wild and stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's a little.
You start to see a little bit of that in the background, and like the cosmics looking Marvel stuff there. And then it ends. How did it end?
The future Lee Harvey Oswald shoots Red Brain, and with a brain-numbing effect, and then disappears again. And the cops are like, I feel like the answer to this mystery is right at my feet. And then you look down, and the newspaper that he's standing on says November 22nd, 1993.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's not the year that this book is set in.
Right, which then makes me, because it was 1993 when this book was made, then I'm like, oh, well, what is this book doing now? Like, I think, like, I instantly got way more intrigued by this. I'm like, wait, are we bringing in 90s shit? Which we are going to in the next issue. But
we find out we've been doing it. Like I said, I understand, Kia, that you're already out on this book, but it is setting this up. And yes, maybe it's setting it up in a way that is too dense, but this is 2 out of 3 issues. We've got 1990s stuff falling into the 1960s. So what's going on?
What is going on? I like the ad for turn your armpits into explosive defense mechanism.
Yes.
Really, the first line, if you can lick your weight in tigers, if licking tigers is your thing.
Yes. This was a parody of an ad that was going to teach you how to do martial arts through the mail.
Yes.
A thing that will definitely work. That bully who's been picking on me will have another thing coming once I look at one picture of a man doing martial arts.
The other half of issue 3 is, as we were talking about, the Iron Man story. It's called The Hypernaut. I, again, didn't even think of this as being like an Iron Man story at all.
This is not an Iron Man story.
It's really.
He's cheating this one.
Yeah.
I loved this story, though.
This is, again, I don't know anything about the story in this one, but the art is really cool. And I would recommend...
The art is so cool, and the premise of the villain. Now, again, they would not do this in 1963. It's way too, like, mind-bending to have a villain like this.
What was the premise? Well, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
So this guy, the Hypernaut, is like a green dude with, like, his face is on his chest, right? Is that what's going on?
And his base is an impossible geometric object where it's a triangle where it's like one of those Mobius strip type things where the sides turn into the wrong side if you trace around where it is.
It's a cool base.
Yes, and that's why he gets targeted, because of his cool base.
He's also got a cool monkey named Queep who has 2 faces. Like it's like one of those like 2-face kind of optical illusion things. Like 3 eyes where the 2 faces are sharing the middle eye, you know? But it's a cool monkey. It's a cool design. Everything in this issue or this story is just like super cool. And flying through space, we have this weird villain who I couldn't tell you the premise of the villain, but it looks like onion rings that are assembled into like a big creature with some kind of loosely related bones and some eyeballs, and it instantly grabbed my attention. Not enough to read the words, mind you, but it did grab my attention.
Well, and that's fine. You don't have to read the words for this story, honestly. And for most of these stories, you don't have to read all of them. But yes, so he is a weird collection of parts. He is speaking in a weird language as he like learns to speak as he's acclimating himself to I forget if he says 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional space that this guy, what's his name? The Iron Man equivalent.
Hypernaut.
Hypernaut, yes. He's adjusting to his reality. So Hypernaut, it takes him a minute to figure out what's going on. So the reader is also confused. Like, why is this guy, like, he just looks like a picture of like a weird skeleton. Like, what's going on? And then, so Hypernaut, this is when I love this issue, this part of this issue. I love this whole issue 3. I think this is when the book starts coming together. But anyway, he locks a airlock, and Hypernaut's like, I don't think you understand. I'm not in 2-dimensional space. He just reaches straight through the airlock because it cuts to a view from the side where he's on one side, and he's like, well, I can just reach right through it because I'm in another dimension than you. So that's what this villain is doing. He is in a higher level of reality than Hypernaut, and he thinks Hypernaut is too because of his base. But he's like easily defeating him because he's like, oh, you're just like a 2-dimensional guy. You suck. And then throws him into a poster of Flatland. And that's when Hypernaut is like, wait a minute. Flatland, famously, is the people who only perceive the world in 2 dimensions. So to them, 3-dimensional objects are crazy.
I see. Okay. I don't know about all that. It just looked very cool.
Whereas I am seeing like this weird outline of this skeleton guy, but it's because I'm only perceiving in 3 dimensions. This guy is in 4 dimensions.
Okay.
That's such a cool, again, this would not, in 1963, this is a little too much, even for Jack Kirby. This is crazy.
Yeah. I do like the part where he like basically kills Hypernaut, essentially. He like has a gun that's got like a magnet attached to the end of it, and I don't know exactly how it works, but he does manage to like kill him, and finally like falls over. The monkey Queep manages to save his head, which is like this kind of reminds me of like Mysterio's head, but when it falls off his body, it's just like a big white marble. And his consciousness is like in this thing, and Queep is carrying it around, like trying to get back to something. And I don't know, there's kind of a Deus Ex Machina where they're able to put his head back on a different body, and like, hey, he's okay.
Yeah, they put his head first inside the 4-dimensional thing, and that is able to give him a bunch of information that causes the thing to fall apart and leave the dimension because it's, I guess, overloading him somehow, and it's unclear how. Yeah. But yeah, then he goes into a new body, and the monkey is happy. Instead of Iron Man being like, I can't tell everyone that I'm trapped in my suit because I need this armor to live, he's like, I have no body. I am the like orb that's floating around. All of the rest of it is just like empty armor. Mm-hmm. That's his, like, again, this is way too crazy for being an Iron Man book, but I really enjoyed this story.
Yeah, I really like that premise of him just being like this floating head that can attach to whatever kind of body. I think I could see a potential for this being like a future, like I can really see potential for all of these little series as being like, actually, I wish, again, this is me like dictating what I would have wanted, but like take any one of these ideas and do 6 issues where you can actually tell a story with them, Nah, right. That's just me.
There's a book that I've mentioned it a few times, and I know we're talking about anniversary episode, and it'll take 4 years to get here. But there's a book called Miranda Mercury that I don't know if it's any good, but it starts at issue 296 and goes to issue 300. So it's like it has this like built-in idea that it's been a long-running book, and I feel like I really want to read that. And I don't know if that's our 300th episode, but that's one that I've always wanted to like explore, like the concept of like an in media res book like that.
I'm so tired of that premise, to be honest. Yeah. After this, especially, I'm like, just say it's number one and tell the story you're trying to tell.
You in
like
4 years, then
you can have fake history built into it. It's fine.
Yeah, but you don't. I mean, Yeah,
it feels like an excuse to not tell a real story to me.
How is that not telling a real? He's had so many stories. I don't understand. Just because it's not an origin story. But I liked. So in the letters page, our favorite Owen Bevels is back. He says, in Tales of the Uncanny number 40, on the first panel of page 21, Cosmax says, "I hunger." Even though he's clearly drinking molten magma from a cracked open planet while he is saying it, and nobody can talk while they're drinking without it coming out down their nose, like when you try to drink a milkshake standing on your head.
So does Owen Bevels write to every single issue of this book?
Until issue 4, and then there's a big reveal that we'll get to here in the next issue.
I did notice that Michael Uslan wrote in though, and Michael Uslan is the guy that somehow fell into or captured the Batman film rights at some point. There's a Hulu there's a Hulu documentary about him, but I knew about him before because he's on one of the Burton Batman special features DVDs. That he's a producer on every Batman movie.
Wow.
So he's fucking rich as shit. I don't know how he fell into it. There's a documentary on Hulu about him. The Kid Who Loved Batman or something like that.
I guess we have to watch that movie to know how he got a producer credit.
But he's got a producer credit on every Batman movie. He's great.
And so he also, I assume it's like Neil Gaiman, where he's probably related to the book in some way, and Alan Moore is making a joke. Not as mean. I think it's issue 4 or 5. He starts telling the story of how he became the head of this comic company, and it's that his uncle owned the company, and that he asked for a job and got it, and that he had to wait until he got his promotion. And then it was a hard Wednesday to Friday while he was waiting before he was made editor of the publisher. And then once he was made editor, he started handing in scripts that were like, I don't know, the bad guys fight for a while, good guys win.
That's my description of the next story, actually.
So Michael Uslan, I'm reading here now, it was friends with Roger Stern. They were teaching at a college together, and so then he started teaching a comics course at a college, and then somehow fell into the rights for Batman movies.
And got Batman producer rights out of teaching at a college. That's crazy. This 4th issue, not as fun as the last issue, but again, still a lot of fun, I think. This is just, it's not what's his name? It's not the creator of Hellboy's fault, but this is Hellboy.
It does look a lot like Hellboy. But so this issue, Tales from the Beyond, it's another 2-parter, and it's like the Hulk and Doctor Strange, right?
Yes.
Is that what we're doing? All right.
Yes. You figure you cracked the code.
I cracked it.
Doctor Strange by way of Constantine and a few other things.
It did remind me more of Constantine for sure. The Hulk one was just the most generic fight you've ever seen in your life. He skydives onto an alien planet. He's attacked by a Russian guy. No, I don't know.
Not an alien planet. They are basically a 3 Mile island or whatever. A nuclear testing ground that there is a gravity disturbance there. And he's unable to communicate with anyone. Unlike the Hulk, he seems to be working for the government, which again just makes him Hellboy.
Ironically, looks like Red Hulk a lot, yes. Who wouldn't show up from Jeff Loeb for another 10 years or something.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be like a lobster with the Hulk's head.
Is that it? He also reminds me a lot of the New 52 book, the Frankenstein Agent of something.
Have we said his name? His name is N-Man.
Yeah, yes. I don't like to say that.
Yeah, me neither.
It stands for Nevada Man, or what was the other negative? Nuclear Man.
Yeah. So he gets attacked by this villain, and they fight. That's it.
You know what? This follows the exact course of how I felt about all these books. I don't give a shit about Hulk comics, and I didn't give a shit about this either. It was spot on. Same as I know that Hypernaut was not exactly like Iron Man, but he fell in the same block of I don't care. So I didn't. It's every single one of these stories. If it's talking about something you kind of already care about it, you might enjoy it, but it's not going to do anything on its own to make you care about anything.
I don't agree though, because again, this is just ideas. This is the idea here is, and what I like is that it's so much of it is a 6th grade, or not a 6th grader. I would say a high school graduate's idea of scientific concepts they sort of read about in an issue of National Geographic but don't really understand, because it's just they find out there's a gravity well that's sucking them in, and it causes the bad guy to shrink.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but it just does. Like it's a comic book. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like a cool perspective-y kind of like there's something going on there, and it's neat,
Yeah, it's like, would it be cool if the End Man just died of radiation poisoning? No, like crazy shit has to happen.
Yeah. It is a lot of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if some crazy thing happened? Like, okay, sure, and then it happens. You're like, all right, okay, It happened.
Yep.
Cool.
So this is also the second half of this. So I read a little bit about what happened to this book. Why there's no more of it and why they never finished it. And this is a little bit of a clue. It's the first issue with pencils not by Stephen Bissette or Rick Veitch or any of his Alan Moore's regular collaborators.
Yeah.
It's
Jimmy Valentino.
Yes, it's Jimmy Valentino from Guardians of the Galaxy, who then was another one of the Image co-founders. And he's the one. Okay. He's the one that that Alan Moore agreed to do this book with, and so it was going to be with him. But then they were going to have Jim Lee do the 80-page big crossover thing. So I don't think Alan Moore understood at the time that even though they were all, there was Valentino, there was Liefeld, there's Jim Lee, and then there was
Eric
at least
Larson.
one. Yeah, Eric Larson, and at least one more.
McFarlane?
Well, no, hold on.
Yeah,
should we save the whole falling out part until the very end?
Sure. But I'm just saying, he thought that he was working all together, and it turns out he wasn't. So that's working with Valentino here is why he doesn't work with Jim Lee later.
I see.
Jim Valentino was Shadowline, the subline of Image, right?
Yes, I think he did the Batman with Wolverine's head book.
Okay.
If you were in a comic shop in the 1990s, that guy. I think Shadow Mask, maybe Shadow something. Yeah. But he's like a metallic guy that had Batman's general proportions and Wolverine's head.
Not to be confused with the amalgam Wolverine Batman.
No. This predates it. And it's also not with the copyright holder's permission.
So this is Johnny. What's his name? Johnny Beyond is the name of this character,
yes.
and he's a real hip dude. He's kind of a beat, and
he's a hep cat.
This is where it really threw me because page one had him with a satellite on the building. I'm like, and I had to I actually before I realized what was going on, I literally stopped reading and went to go do research if the satellites existed in 1963. On rooftops, because I know radio signals and television signals were really hard to come by in Manhattan because of the skyscrapers.
I was gonna say, did you read the next page?
I stopped there, and I literally my ADHD just stopped there, and then went and researched, went down a rabbit hole to say did satellites exist in '63, and then realized this is what this book is doing. And even on this page, you can clearly tell there's 90s styled fashion on that half of the page.
Yeah, there's a guy.
Vince.
Yeah, there's a guy with sunglasses and a backwards baseball cap walking in the '90s part, and then a guy with a suit, jacket, tie, and hat in the 1963 part.
Yeah, and a little fedora. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops! I went down the rabbit hole.
And this book is the first one that I would say is very overt about the fact that it's doing a whole lot of. Maybe not, but it is doing kind of constant somebody's here from the future, and they kind of realize it. Yes. And so this guy, he's really just kind of trying to hit on these dames and sees a pretty blonde lady who's dressed so uniquely. Where is she from? And
she's on her way to work out in a red jacket with, it's a 70s throwback style. She's got a red suit jacket kind of look to then go work out, she says. And she has short hair, which is how he thinks she's crazy.
No, I think she's meeting her instructor at a bar that's supposed to be called The Laundry.
Oh, okay.
Yes, well, but then they show up there, and it's just an actual laundromat. He helped, she's lost, and he's like, hey, I'll help you, lady. And they get to this place, and it's not even a bar. So then he's like, hey, let's just go to another bar together. And she says, okay, so they do.
A coffee bar, because he's a cool guy.
He's a very cool guy. And Then she is like the bartender's like, what's with this lady? She's got a big old cell phone that she pulls out of her purse, and it's like a 90s cell phone too. It's like a giant. And this coffee that she's drinking like makes her feel sick, so Johnny takes her back to her boyfriend's place. But her boyfriend lives in the same building that he does in Greenwich Village. And it turns out they live right next door to each other. How did he never know that they lived there? What's going on here? And the boyfriend comes. Oh, they go check out the apartment. It's so futuristic and weird looking. And he's like making reference to what is it? He talks about some book, and it's like a movie. And they're like, how'd they fit a whole book into a movie? I thought that was a fun.
And then he's like, dig these crazy coasters, because he has like a laser disc.
Oh my goodness. Then the boyfriend comes home, and it's an older version of himself. And this lady didn't realize that she was in the past, and we get a whole bunch of trippy stuff. And
he has a type.
Yeah, and the trippy art is cool. I can't explain any of it to you, but it's great. I like it.
Yeah. He contacts his Ancient One equivalent. He astral projects himself. They go back even further into the past in 1933, and they have like a Clark Kent and Lois Lane type wearing their outdated clothes. Don't you know there's a depression on? And so they're just like traveling all over in time, and then they end up outside of time, outside of the building. It's crazy.
Yeah, with the multiple like weird mouths like on top of each other, which is very much feels like the Ditko and Steranko art that I'm used
Steranko.
to.
Yeah. I love looking at it. Love flipping through this thing. Great pictures.
I love the twist too. He shows up back in the 60s, and I'm not going to do the voice, his jive talking friend, who's supposed to be African American, but they draw him as like a weird gray color. It's like, hey, I thought you were dead. Yeah. What happened? This is the guy that they referenced earlier. And he's like, I messed up. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. Whatever happened, you can fix it. And he's like, I don't understand. My name is John Beyond. I'm not Johnny Beyond. And then he's like, what? Then what happened? And then it cuts to his like ghost form, like going through the crazy world.
It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat stuff. I like the ad at the end of this one for soil monkeys.
Yes, this is a parody of the sea monkeys.
Of course, yeah. And they're all playing instruments. Is that what the sea monkeys played in the ads? Did they play instruments?
They might have.
I don't know.
This is also, I think this is the conclusion of the Owen Bevel saga.
Oh, yeah, tell us.
In Tales from Beyond number 64, on page 7 in panel 2, you had the general call N-Man Champers instead of Chambers. Also in Messages from Beyond letter column, you printed a long letter from me, even though to my certain knowledge, I am a completely made up and fictitious character. Can I have an Auntie award?
Wow. That's pretty good.
So, spoiler, Owen Bevel's not real.
Wow. I can't believe they would reveal that like that. How did he write a letter to himself, identifying that? Well, okay.
Called him Champers instead of Chambers. Classic goof.
All right. On to issue 5. It's the Thor story. It's called Horus, Lord of Light. This one.
This was tough. I don't like Silver Age Thor, I should just say.
Yeah.
It's pretty par for the, like, again, it's like, if you don't like a Thor book, you're probably not going to like Horus.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He is a professor at a school who does a thing to turn Egyptian, and a lot of Egyptian mythology.
That he
all
turns
throughout.
into a god. Blah blah blah.
He's Horus. Yeah.
His student is like trying to be an overachiever, and is like, oh, look, there's Horus. I'm gonna go like sneak onto his ship and go on an adventure in outer space, and surely that'll get me a good grade in this class to get all this good firsthand knowledge about stuff.
Yeah, I do like. It's not really a Jane Foster parody, but it does feel like a Stan Lee parody of like why would you do this? Like, it's such a silly. All the letters page we haven't mentioned, but all the letters pages are like, I'm a boy, so I don't read your girl comics.
There is some Wolfman kidnapper. That's the only note that I wrote down, and that's where I stopped. Some Wolfman kidnapper. I assume everything ended up okay.
Yeah, watch what's it called? Is it Gods and Kings or Gods of Egypt? That movie from like 10 years ago.
I will not watch that movie.
Gods of Egypt. Actually. That's from the director of Dark City and I Robot.
Yeah, as you say, it's Proyas, right?
Right. Didn't he direct like The Crow and Dark City and I Robot? I'm like, this guy's pretty good. And he directed like Knowing with Nick Cage, and then Gods of Egypt, and then I don't think he's made anything since.
No, he's in, I think, director jail, probably for good reason, but it's a bunch of crazy ideas, which I think is interesting, which is kind of what this book is. Again, I don't like Thor stuff. I do like the tester patriotism where they say don't use the
tracer thing.
The tracing light. That's cheating.
All right, now. Well, let's anything else to say about this, because we got good stuff coming up.
This actually, like, the only reason I know about these like boats and stuff is because of, ironically, not Egyptian mythology, but because of the Moon Knight TV show. So
there you go. So it all paid off, all of this. It's just the Egyptian gods instead of the Norse gods. It's like he's like, oh, Set, my uncle, I hate you. You killed Osiris, my father. Like it's just that, and then Osiris shows up in like spirit form or whatever. I do like the art of when his the like incarnation of Titan Horus shows up and is like gigantic. I thought that was cool. Mm-hmm. Again, yeah, the rest of it, I'm just like, this is stupid.
I looked up a Sea Monkeys ad. They did not have instruments.
No instruments.
And this Neil Gaiman also wrote in on this.
Yes, this is the issue. So let me read I think I quoted it. Here's the paragraph that's important from me. This is allegedly from Neil Gaiman, Nutley, Sussex, England. I will do the Neil Gaiman voice. I thought it was very good, but thought that there were some things about England that you got wrong. I've been to London lots of times, and there aren't any thatched cottages in Trafalgar Square. Also, English policemen don't carry machine guns. Also, the Queen lives in Buckingham Palace, not in Big Ben like you said. And we don't really say things like, "Oh, governor, if I don't get some steak and kidney pie this here minute, I'm going to be right chitlins." Like you had the Prime Minister say to Johnny Beyond.
Great.
The Prime Minister. He really wants a steak and kidney pie.
All right, great. Were there any ads in this one? I don't know.
Sea Monkeys and stuff.
We mentioned the don't trace, test your patriotism, and there's one about getting rid of your acne as well.
Oh, I think it's getting acne. Get banished clear
skin. Oh, okay.
To look younger. I know there's been like a TikTok thing that's come, a TikTok filter that's been like, look younger, and I think it just makes your skin smoother and maybe your eyes a little bigger and gets rid of the bags under your eyes. That's what the filter is. But like, oh yeah, give me acne, and then it will look exactly like I'm 30 years younger.
Yeah, give me a forehead breakout because I had a piece of candy yesterday.
All right, everybody. Now
we're at the final issue.
We're at the final issue, and shit's turning around here because they are going back. It's the Avenger. It's the Tomorrow Syndicate. It's every hero that we've seen in the first 5 issues coming together, and I'm like, oh my god, are we gonna get like actual conclusion to like this first story that they didn't even like finish that's been pissing me off this whole time? All right, let's do it. And I'm like on board.
Mystery Incorporated, they're not back.
Well, and I'm looking for Mystery Incorporated.
They're looking for them. Yeah, they're looking for the first team.
It's
and
not
I'm like,
conclusion, but it is continuation. And actually, I'm like, this is fucking brilliant. I'm on board. Like everybody has their solo books, and they come together for the Avengers, which is kind of like the movies, but also like how the comic was.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to this book because it's going to give me the finality. It's going to give me the conclusion that I want. And so I'm going to pay attention. So let's go.
We also have Inframan and Infragirl, who are a scientist who's boring and a flirty girl who keeps as the hots for Thor or Horus. Sorry. Who could they be? We don't know.
But like Justice League and Avengers books, it's going to be wholly unsatisfying, and you're not going to get the character moments you want.
Yeah, not at all. There's. I said I was paying attention, but I barely understood how this book started. They're on a quest to go find the mystery people.
Yeah, they all meet at their headquarters on Mount Rushmore, which is more of a DC idea, I will say. That's very DC.
They end up going through some dimension hopping stuff, and they run into like a bunch of other heroes, and they realize like, wait a minute, that's like a superhero team that I used to be a part of in the past, and they realize that they're in like the Golden Age now. They meet what do they call the Victory Vanguard, which is a pretty Golden Age name.
Yes,
Invaders.
Yep.
Yes, this feels like Roy Thomas is already helping the fake Alan Moore because every time the Invaders show up, I'm like, Roy Thomas is doing this because he's the guy that like had an encyclopedic memory of all the 40s stuff, and he writes the Invaders in the 70s and is the editor of Marvel after Stan Lee leaves.
And so this book is essentially them doing a bunch of dimension hopping over and over again to kind of like try to get to the right place. You know, there's some cool ideas. They go to like this world where the villains have taken over, and so Mount Rushmore is Al Capone, John Wilkes Booth, Benedict Arnold, and Billy the Kid.
I love that because they all recognize those guys on sight. They recognize Benedict Arnold.
Who recognizes Benedict Arnold? The villains run this place. They got portraits of Genghis Khan and Hitler up. One of the villains is the Persian Demon of Darkness, which is me, which is great.
Is that Ahriman? I know him from Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that was the name. And then there's also Hiroshiman, I think is how you would say it. It's Hiroshima, but Hiroshiman. But also like it's meant to be like kind of a guy who's been through a nuclear thing. But also it's like I think Hiroshi in Japanese just means happy, so it's like happy man. That's all I could see when I was reading.
Yes, and he's the abomination basically.
Yes. Not that any of that matters because they leave that place and they go see a giant face, and then they go keep looking for different worlds. They see one world, it's all destroyed.
They go to a world and they're like, I don't understand. We're not in the future, but everyone's a skeleton. What happened?
Yeah. They see the Statue of Liberty in shambles there. Then they travel to 1963 and a half. And they've got like they see JFK there like in the car with some bear named Bimbo and with like little claws and stuff, and like one of the dudes in the crowd has weird little tentacle things coming out of his eyes. And it's like, what the hell is this?
Deeply unsettling.
Very unsettling. Then they get to a world that seems a little bit right, and they're like, it's got to be where it is. And the art all changes and becomes kind of modernized, and you're like, oh, what is this here?
Yeah, I love the art when they're traveling through and they see all the flashes of different things. Like, this is so cool. Like, there's so much stuff going on. Like, so many, again, just ideas. Like, you see a like parody version of Superman and Jimmy Olsen. You see the guy from Understanding Comics. You see just a big dinosaur man. You see like a cartoon animated sort of like Cerberus or that kind of cartoon art animal guy. You see like a image version of what I think is supposed to be the I forget what they were, the sort of Justice Society from an alternate Earth, because I see a Phantom Lady and some other people. Like, there's just so much stuff. It's like, here you go. But yeah, they get back to Earth and they're like, what's happening? Like, why are we in this place where everything is so real?
Yes, and we see the villain from that very first issue, who's wearing the like insulated gloves and stuff. And he's returned from 1963, and he has what he was looking for. He has this box with the Human Torch or whatever his name is inside. And he turns to the page and reveals himself. And I'm like, wait a minute, this character looks familiar. It's from Youngblood, which was a 1993, or like a 90s image series. Yeah. And there's a page at like a little caption thing at the bottom. And it's like, hey, to finish the story and to see all of these heroes you've been meeting run into Spawn and Wildcats and Shadowhawk and Youngblood and Savage Dragon and Supreme, make sure you pick up the 80-page special called blah, blah, blah. And That's the end of the story. And I instantly said, fuck this book. And I was so mad at this thing. I read all of this. It's not their
fault. They didn't know that.
No. So wait, let's take a pause right here. The book is not finished. There is no 80-page special?
So they advertised an 80-page special at the end of issue 6 to continue the story, okay?
Right.
The 80-page special never happened. This is when the falling out happened with everybody.
Wait, okay. Because I was just sad. So I'm like, well, did we just forget to read something, or did we not put that on the agenda? And then I was like, I gotta hunt down this.
It never happened.
What the fuck?
It never happened. And it was all meant to like tie back.
Not that I want to see him fight. Not that I want to see these characters fight with Spawn. I don't really want to see that. But okay.
I don't give a shit about any of this. Oh my! Like,
no one escapes the Fury. Could Spawn escape the Fury? Huh? Think about it.
This made me so mad. I was given this thing another fair shot at the end, and then it just like, I get what you're saying. It's ideas, but with zero substance behind them. It was like I was just pissed off by this whole fucking thing. I know we've read worse books than this, but this was my personal least favorite reading experience of anything we've ever done on the show, ever.
That's
happy
so
anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
That's so loud.
God, it was torture. This book was torture for me. I'm sorry. That's my final thoughts.
I really don't know what to say. I really don't.
It's okay. I understand that you enjoy it. It has those fun moments and the art's cool, but like, damn, trying to read anything in here, it was just too spot on of a parody, but without any of the other stuff from the Silver Age that gave me anything to latch on to. I just could not be asked to care about any of it. Oh.
But why do you care if the Fury was named Spider-Man? Why do you care about about him fighting the Vulture in Spider-Man #2? Why do you care about that? It's not a complete story.
I don't know. That's a great question. Do I care about it? It's so bizarre. Maybe because I know that there is no other history surrounding it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't read this thing without knowing that it is like this is it. This is all that exists of these characters, and knowing that makes it harder for me.
I guess, but like I said, I totally get that. That's valid. But for me, like I said, this. He iterates better on these ideas in the future. I will say we've covered some of the Supreme stuff, which I think is a better version of his sort of like wanting to tell Silver Age crazy stories, but in a 90s sort of world. I think that's better. I think Tom Strong, he does a good job because he's parodying pre comic book stuff. He's doing like the Man of Bronze and Tarzan riffs, and like people don't really have attachment to that, so it just seems like kind of just funny that he's doing it. But yeah, I don't know. Vince, what did you think about this book?
I really like the Captain America story. I like the Johnny Beyond story. I was intrigued by the idea that it was building to something with this like tying in the future story. I honestly wanted to read the 80-page special. I was going to look it up on my own.
It would have been cool. I'm sad they didn't do it.
And I'm kind of shocked that like it didn't actually happen, which is hilarious to me. I think like from like a Marvel movie standpoint, it's the same way that like it's like 5 disconnected stories that you may or may not like that then are building to something. I have a hard time with like 60s Silver Age comics as it is. And I think my original thing that I said about like, yeah, you made a Pitch Perfect, like Fantastic Four parody, or not parody, but like homage, but like to what end are you continuing the story? You're successful in making it, but it's not like Venture Brothers where it's like fucking funny and making fun of it. So like, that's kind of like what I was wanting, which is maybe not what I was expecting in the book. And I think that Moore does these kind of like homages better with like Supreme or Promethea. And that's more of what I like from Moore. So I'm grading on a curve, and this is less interesting as a result, but the art is really fucking spot on. Like, it is technically really well done. And I just don't know if I care. Which
I get it. I do. Like I said, I think this book has some pretty good laughs when they go, because they set up at their base is Mount Rushmore, and then then go and like they're like, wait a minute, that's Benedict Arnold and Billy the Kid and all these people. Why are they in our Mount Rushmore? Like that's a good joke. I mean, come on.
No, that was all really cool. That's the kind of stuff. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and then I was thinking like, and it's absolutely 100% appropriate for like 63 to be like, these are the villains of our society, is John Wilkes Booth, and the stupid posters, and then
and I appreciate so much of the humor is, and again, I don't know if you guys have heard that this Alan Moore guy is pretty good, but so much of the humor of the book, what I think is great about Alan Moore, again, and it's unfair to compare, I know, to Stan Lee, who I love Stan Lee's Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, and I tolerate the rest of the stuff he's done, but what Alan Moore does is he lets the jokes be on the page so much better than Stan Lee ever could. So it's just like the joke is, you have to kind of get it. Like, you have to see what they're doing and understand that it's a reference. And I get, that's not always the funniest thing. But it's not just the characters telling a joke, which I feel like so much of Stan Lee's, when he would try to be funny, it's just like, oh, the character tries to be funny. The humor is in the art, which I feel like it's a good collaborator thing to do. And that you're like, look, if the artists do their job, people will get this and it'll be funny. If the artists don't do their job, no one will get this and it won't make any sense at all. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to sit there and explain the joke and have like an arrow pointing and be like, did you see that this is happening? Pretty weird.
No, and Moore is really good for that and a good value, because like I think like what I saw was like the From Hell annotated edition was incredible. Like the What's New annotated edition Watchmen annotated edition that my buddy has is incredible. What else was another one that's really good?
Yeah.
I like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think you got more out of that than I ever could, because I just don't have the frame of reference for it.
Yeah, I mean, From Hell, like, again, like that book is so helpful for like giving, I think you should give it to college students instead of Watchmen, because it teaches you to look at the pictures and not just the words. Like, he puts words in there almost as a distraction sometimes, where it's like literally the opposite of what the pictures are telling you is happening. And you have to look at the pictures, which I think is, you have to learn. Yeah, you have to learn how comics are, that because Stan Lee doesn't trust. He's like, okay, this is, I don't know who's in charge of this. Is Jack Kirby's got like 17 books. The inker's doing a bunch of fill-ins. I don't know if kids are going to get this, so I need to explain it. Alan Moore is really trusting, Rick Veitch and Steve Bissette and these guys, and like, you guys are going to get it. Like, it's gonna, if you understand what we're doing, you'll get it.
Right, and I grew up in the age of like writer-centric comics of like the mid-2000s. And not art-centric comics, so I'm used to looking at the words and dealing with like substandard art. So I'm not trained for this, despite having hosted 200 episodes of a comic book podcast.
Yeah, but again, that's why this is. I don't want to do this every week. I understand this was a lot. This took a few hours to read, which I don't want to do every time.
This took a few years off of my life. So, are we ready for some Batman? Are we done with this?
Yeah. I think. I like I said, I totally understand, Kia. I'm not saying you're wrong. I know.
No, it's okay. I really actually would like very highly recommend like find this thing, download it online, and like just flip through it. It's really, really cool to look at. The ads are great, and if you do like a Silver Age parody kind of thing, I can see the jokes. They just didn't land for me, but they clearly landed for Chris, so they might land for you. So check it out. You might like it. That's me trying to be positive. Okay, I'm trying here. But yeah, let's move on to Batman now. We are exactly halfway through the Broken Bat saga of Knightfall. We have a whole bunch of villains that have escaped from Arkham Asylum. Batman is tired as hell, and Yeah, we've got Poison Ivy on the cover of this one. We were talking about this cover last time with Batman's weirdly off-model ears that are way too big. Jeez, that's so bizarre.
His chest is also like all funky, like it's real dad bodded. Like he's got his glam muscles, like his abs are clearly toned, but like there's still like a fair amount of pudge on the sides of the.
I mean, he has a solid face in his chest. You can make out he's got like a chin there.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a great image. It's very awkward.
I remember seeing this as a kid in 1993 and being like, what?
Yeah, what's going on? And also, does this ever actually happen? Like the cover is Batman tied to a tree with Poison Ivy, like ready to.
Kelly Jones was. We've talked about Kelly Jones as like being like a legendary Batman artist.
Right in, Kia. On page 27, Batman calls Poison Ivy Poison Evie.
Yeah.
Mistake.
Oh man. All right, so let's jump into the story. Written by Doug Mensch and art by Jim Aparo. Continuing straight off the last issue, Batman is falling into a fire. He's been fighting the Firefly, and they are both kind of going down. And so Batman kind of like swings to the side so that Firefly can catch an updraft, and so that the villain can get to safety.
I know about updrafts from Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
True. That's the only reason I know about. You can use the fire's updraft to float up higher in the air.
Great.
Sure, you can.
Good job, Batman. He knew. Batman has played Breath of the Wild. And he...
Does Batman know about shield surfing?
I think
100%.
I think Batman knows.
100%.
So this villain is like, what a dumbass helping me fly. And then Batman basically uses him to hitch a ride with his grappling hook. And I think, does the villain end up escaping?
Yes.
Yeah. So then we see, is this Azrael here?
Yeah.
On the next page? I figured it was, but then later he's like, it's neither Azrael nor Batman. I couldn't quite tell. I wish he had identified himself. That's all.
He's going out by himself. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not important in the story. He just shows up for a second.
Not yet. He will.
It's just like, hey, just be aware. There's this other guy running around doing Batman stuff. Okay, cool.
We've got to set him up to take over as Batman instead of anyone else when Batman.
Literally anyone else.
Yeah, we have the most relatable Bruce Wayne you've ever seen in your life here, who has just gotten home from being Batman. He looks like shit. And he's like, God, Alfred, there's a function tonight, and I have to go. And he just fucking passes out face down on the bed. And Alfred's like, yeah, man, I'm going to wake you up as late as possible. Don't worry.
It's very relatable. I do know
very
social events. I get it, Batman.
Yeah. After a long day of work, having to go to a damn party, Jesus, man.
For like a work party? Oh, my God. It'd kill me.
And he's throwing it, I think.
Exactly. Like, I have to be there. It's a work thing, but for fun, ugh.
I do appreciate the line, in one mask or another, I have to be there. It's a good line. Then we have Poison Ivy has like a bunch of mindless slaves that she's got spores on or something. What does she call them? The dead fellows, she calls them. And we see Bird. He's up on the roof, Bane's henchman Bird. And he's talking to Bane through his thing, and he's like, "Hey, I think you got to come down to the Gotham Civic Center. I think some stuff's going down here." We see Joker and Scarecrow. They are at the mayor's office again. They keep visiting this mayor here. I guess they're in cahoots with Poison Ivy because they are giving a distraction. Essentially, they want the mayor to distract all the cops in the city away from what's going to happen at the Civic Center. And so we see, I guess I'll jump forward a little bit, but later on, Harvey Bullock runs into Gordon's office and was like, the mayor's been kidnapped. He was just on the phone and he gave an address before the kidnappers cut off the line. And so Gordon's like, well, send everybody over there. And everybody goes to this trap. So meanwhile, Bane shows up. He's watching this whole function with binoculars. He sees Bruce Wayne and he's like, that's him. I fucking know him. That's Batman. I can tell.
He looks like shit. Amazing. I know that's Batman.
It's amazing.
It's great. I do like that quite a bit where I'm like, yeah, man, you fought the guy. You can tell it's him. It's okay. That's great.
He looks really tired. Batman's really tired. Case closed.
Put two really elevates together. Bane. Like, oh shit, Bane figured this shit out immediately.
Batman, it does elevate Bane. You're right. And Batman is talking to his doctor, who is, we've seen him before, like trying to cancel. Like he's constantly canceling appointments, and she's like, "Why do I care so much about this man?" Because he's Bruce fucking Wayne. And they're talking. She's like, "Man, you look rough. Why do you keep canceling your appointments?" And Bruce is just like, "Hey, having you at my table is the only medicine I need," which, like, it's pretty smooth. I get it, but like, Bruce, what are you doing, man? Like you're just flirting with your doctor when you really need to just be her patient right now.
He can't turn it off. He has to use the Bruce Wayne charming abilities. Yes. So then he notices that there's something wrong with the air.
Yeah, he's like talking to Lucius, who's like, "Hey, I know you're kind of pretending to be like an idiot at work, but you're like kind of actually being shitty at work recently and not doing your job." And then everybody starts to like pass out a little bit and get woozy and stuff. And he realizes like it's like a poison ivy thing, and he manages to, we don't see this, I almost missed it, he's like, "Oh good, I got those filters in my nose just in time," and he's not affected by it, but he's kind of playing along so the poison ivy doesn't suspect anything, but everyone like turns into her mindless slave again because of this poison stuff. And she loads everyone up onto the back of a truck. I don't know what her plan is here. She loads everyone up onto the back of a big truck and takes them to her botanical garden where she's gonna kiss them dead and take their stuff
and rob them. Yeah,
and rob them. Okay, cool.
Why couldn't she have done that there? I don't know.
But Bruce is finally like, "Okay, let me stop pretending to be hypnotized." And this might be my other panel of the week. She's going to kiss one of the guests, and Batman tosses a batarang right at her mouth, like bam, right at her lips, and she's like kind of bleeding a little bit. Out of nowhere, very nice. They fight a little bit, and these dead fellows attack Batman, but of course he's fine. Knocks out Poison Ivy, calls an ambulance. Actually, he says bring lots of ambulances. Tell them to wear gas masks. Great. And so the day is saved. Meanwhile, the cops have gone after the mayor who was kidnapped, who was never really kidnapped. I don't think they actually kidnapped him.
No, he is kidnapped. It's just that he's in his own house.
Yeah, he's kidnapped in his own house, essentially. But they go to this like fair, carnival or whatever, where the Joker sent them, and he explodes a bomb, and a whole bunch of cops are dead. And yeah. That's the story there. Oh, we see Azrael again. What does he do? Take out some goons. Cool. Nice job, Azrael. You're doing great. That's the end of that one. A pretty I like this one a little bit better than the others. It felt, I don't know why I like this one. It seemed focused. We got to see that Bruce Wayne side, I think, which I really liked, and see how him being tired affected that side, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked, even though there was, I mean, we still have Bane show up again after he wasn't in the last issue, but I liked how it was mostly focused on Poison Ivy eliminated by the end of this. I feel like that's the way they should be doing this. Instead of just being like, oh, there's Scarface and Firefly and Scarecrow and Joker and like whoever, like he should be getting one every issue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is the first issue in a while where we didn't see Scarface the ventriloquist looking for everyone.
Yeah, no update on what he's doing. We didn't see Dr. Simpson Flanders.
Oh, our old friend.
But we got Bane because we didn't get Bane at all last issue.
Yeah. Bane and Bird.
It was very brief Bane, but it was effective. It was effective. They do. There is a little bit with Bane at the end, where he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get this guy. He's mine to break."
Yeah, I hope he can defeat Joker, but only barely because I want to beat him up. Like, okay, Bane.
Cool. And I really like the cover for the next issue. It's a Sam Keith cover. Looks rad.
Yep.
Also long ears.
Unrealistic.
Yeah. But yeah, it's okay. All right. I think anything y'all want to say about this issue?
I think that's it. It was a good issue. It's back on track.
Yeah. We're getting to the end of it. We're getting to the we're getting focused. So what are we doing next time? Next time, starting issue episode 201. We are of course continuing Batman Knightfall. We are on chapter 8 next time in Detective Comics 662. And then for our main read, we did kind of want to link something back to the Silver Age here a little bit. We're reading a book. It's actually the most modern book we would have ever read on this show. It just came out last year in September. It's called Fantastic Four Full Circle, written and drawn by Alex Ross. I guess written and painted by Alex Ross. It is. I don't think I've ever read anything written by Alex Ross. I've read
things co-written by him, but never fully written by him.
Yeah, he's of course the guy who did Marvels. Who we read. Have we read anything else?
Kingdom Come.
Did we read Kingdom Come? We did, didn't we? Yeah,
we did.
And yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. I guess it's kind of a circling back to the beginning of the Fantastic Four. I don't exactly know exactly.
Art looks good. Alex Ross doing a comic is always interesting.
Yeah, and it's a short, which I'm looking forward to after this week.
Yeah, we're giving ourselves a little victory lap. Did you by the way, did you see that Bill Watterson is having a graphic novel coming out in October? Calvin and Hobbes guy? Yeah.
Didn't he die?
No.
Wait, what?
He's still alive. He's still alive. The Calvin and Hobbes guy. He's got a new book coming out in October. It's only like 60 pages. He wrote it. May not have done the art, but he definitely wrote it.
I had no idea.
It's crazy, right? So kind of gives me vibes.
30 years.
Yeah, no shit, right? It's like 95. But we're not talking about that right now. We maybe cover that later.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
I still want to do more comic strips on this show. I think
we've never done one. We
Calvin and Hobbes. Let's start with Dilbert.
Yes. Classic Dilbert.
Anything? Is Dilbert up to anything this week?
No, I don't think he's culturally relevant at all. Well, he probably isn't now, but shit. The days are just packed. Calvin and Hobbes. That would be my recommendation. But that's neither here nor there. I liked that one a lot.
Cool. Well, I think that's it for this episode. What's going on with the Your Stupid Mind podcast, Chris?
What is going on with Your Stupid Minds? We have finally finished our Pinocchio saga. We were stuck in that for a long time, and we're moving on to a new. I don't know. We'll see if we're doing more than one episode. But we covered The Spirit, not the one from the 2000s, but the one from the 1980s that no one has seen.
Huh.
Sam Jones and one of the actresses from Star Trek Deep Space Nine are in The Spirit.
Have y'all covered the one directed by Frank Miller at all yet?
We have not done a podcast about it. I did a text review of it about 15 years ago, being somewhat positive on it as a comedy, not as a drama. It's clearly bad as a drama, but I think it's funny.
That's hilarious.
Amazing. Great, Vince. What's going on with you?
Nothing. Absolutely 100% nothing. Go download our other previous 200 episodes. Enjoy them.
Oh, shit. All of them?
All of them. Go check us out on YouTube. I don't know if there's an actual address, but it's All My Friends Are Right Here on YouTube. You can check us out there, or allmyfriendsarerightere.com. We've got a ton of episodes. Congratulations on 200 episodes. We're a bi-weekly show, which means that we could have had 400 episodes if we'd been doing this every week and hadn't gotten distracted a few times by things like pandemics and having kids. But it's been like 8 years, guys. Like, congratulations. Like, good job. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it for this journey. It's been a lot of fun.
Congratulations.
Ant-Man 1 wasn't even out by the time when we started this. So
what a cultural milestone, a cultural touchstone right there.
Yeah, Ant-Man
the
1.
Release of Ant-Man 1.
Not anything else. Ant-Man 1.
Oh man. Well, great, excellent. I've been very sick here the last couple of weeks, but I should be getting well soon. But yeah, listeners, again, whether you've been with us for all 200 or if this is your first, then
thank you. With us since Ant-Man 1 or Ant-Man 2 or even Ant-Man 3.
Oh my God, any of the Ant-Mans, we love you no matter what your Ant-Man
you came with us on.
I'm done. Okay, Vince, I love you.
I love you too, buddy.
Chris, I love you.
I'm feeling these strange chemicals. I get the wall.
Oh, gee.
I get it.
It's pretty good. All right. Well, everybody, again, thank you. And listeners, we love you as well. Have a nice night or day. Bye.